and welcome back everyone. In this video we will be studying about respiration. In our last video we studied about digestion as well as we also studied about absorption, isn't it? Digestion is the process of breaking down of food into the smaller component, and absorption is the process by which the inner wall of small intestine, that is the villi, they absorb the component of the food and take it to the bloodstream, isn't it? And now we will be studying about respiration, and the respiration is the process by which cell use oxygen to break the sugar to obtain energy. Okay, don't be confused between breathing and respiration. Breathing is just a process of taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide, but the respiration is the process in which the oxygen is used by the cell. Okay, in respiration there is the use of oxygen, but in breathing we take in oxygen. Okay, here we utilize the oxygen. Okay, what we do, we use the oxygen to break down the glucose and then produce energy. Without oxygen we will not be able to break down the glucose, and hence will not be able to produce the energy or obtain energy for our day-to-day activities, isn't it? That is the reason why we need oxygen. That means breathing is essential for respiration to occur. Okay, after this video we will be studying about breathing, the mechanism of breathing, what happens during breathing, what changes happens in our diaphragm or in our lungs while we breathe. Okay, but in this part we'll only be studying about how does the component of the food, that is glucose, break down to produce energy. Okay, now you see, in our last video we studied in digestion that the final product of carbohydrate was glucose, the final product of protein was amino acids, and the final product of the fat was fatty acid and glycerol, isn't it? But we are only studying about the breaking down of glucose. Why are we not studying about the breaking down of amino acids and fatty acid and glycerol? What happens to them? Protein or the amino acids, they are mainly the reservoir molecule. They will go and deposit in the muscle cells. Okay, or they will help to bring out the other biochemical processes happening in the body. The fats also, they go and deposit in a adipose tissue. In class 9 we studied the chapter tissue, where we studied about adipose tissue, isn't it? The fats molecule, after getting broken down, they go and deposit in the adipose tissue. Now what is remaining freely? The only thing that is remaining is glucose. Okay, and when the glucose or the carbohydrate, they are less in body, then what happened? The liver, they convert the storage protein and the storage fats into glucose and break it down. Okay, in this part we are studying about the breaking down of glucose. In your NCERT book, as we come to the part respiration, okay, there is a diagram in which one man is blowing air towards the test tube, and another diagram in which the air is blown with the help of pichkari, isn't it? What is the motto of that experiment, or what is the aim of that experiment? That experiment want to show you that we exhale carbon dioxide, because in the first and second chapter in the chemistry we studied that the carbon dioxide, it reacts with lime water and the lime water turns milky, isn't it? And now we are following the same principle, and then we are doing this experiment. In this experiment what we are doing, we are just blowing the air to the test tube, isn't it? And inside the test tube what is there? There is lime water, and if we are exhaling CO2, means that lime water will turn milky, isn't it? And in the next picture what is done? The air is blown with the help of pichkari, and they are telling that the time taken for both the lime water in both the test tube to turn milky is different. The one which is blown by our mouth will be turning milky much more faster as compared to one that has been blown by pichkari. Okay, that is because Pichkari is giving the air or the mixture of air which does not only contain CO2 but it contains different percentage of different mixture of air like oxygen, nitrogen, argon. There are different composition of air and the carbon dioxide is present in the air in the lesser amount. Alright, this is the reason why in the test tube blown with the help of Pichkari turns lime water milky in a longer period of time, because the concentration of carbon dioxide blown by the Pichkari will be much less as compared to the concentration of carbon dioxide blown by our mouth or exhaled by our mouth. Okay, same thing happen when the yeast ferments. Okay, the end product after the fermentation is carbon dioxide, because of which the lime water connected to the fermentation test tube will also turn the lime water milky. Okay, and here what has been written, we breathe out carbon dioxide. This can be demonstrated by exhaling air into lime water, isn't it? I explained you that, and we studied in the last video about digestion and absorption, and in this video we are going to study about respiration. Here we are coming to the steps of respiration. You see, first is the breakdown of glucose. I told you that the primary molecule in our body after the food has been broken down is glucose. Okay, the amino acids and the fatty acid and glycerol also, they can also be converted into glucose. Okay, but they remain stored somewhere. When the body requires them, they can also be broken down into glucose. Okay, and you see the glucose is a molecule containing 6 carbon, C6H12O6, isn't it? That means one molecule of glucose contains 6 carbon. Okay, and now that glucose will be breaking down into pyruvate. Alright, breaking down of glucose into pyruvate happens in cytoplasm. Okay, and the process is known as glycolysis. Okay, and the process in which the glucose is broken down into pyruvate is known as glycolysis, and these processes occur in cytoplasm. Okay, the first step of respiration is the breaking down of glucose to pyruvate. Okay, now you see 2 molecules of 3 carbon each. That means pyruvate contains 3 carbon. 1 molecule of glucose contains 6 carbon and 1 molecule of pyruvate contains 3 carbon. That means 1 molecule of glucose, it breaks down to form 2 pyruvate molecule. Okay, see out here, if this process of breaking down of glucose into pyruvate happens in the presence of oxygen, then the process will be known as aerobic respiration. Okay, and if this process of breaking down of glucose into pyruvate happens in the absence of oxygen, then the process would be known as anaerobic respiration. Alright, that means the process of glycolysis is common in all living organisms. No matter that organism respires aerobically, that is in the presence of oxygen or in the absence of oxygen, they will be undergoing the process of glycolysis. That means the process of glycolysis is common in all living organisms. Glycolysis must happen if an organism is living. Okay, what happens to these pyruvate in the absence of oxygen, in the lack of oxygen, and in the presence of oxygen? We'll be studying all 3 scenarios. I told you all living organism, may it be higher living organism or smaller living organism, they undergo the process of glycolysis. Okay, and the thing that is uncommon between the aerobic respiring organism and anaerobic respiring organism, that is the organism respiring in the presence of oxygen and the organism respiring in the absence of oxygen, is the process after the formation of pyruvate. Okay, here in first case, what is happening? In the absence of oxygen, the example we are studying here is about yeast. In your book, the example of yeast has been given. Apart from yeast, there are other small living organisms such as some bacteria which also can respire anaerobically. Okay, but here we are especially studying about yeast. When it respires in the absence of oxygen, what will be produced? Okay, you see here in yeast, in the absence of oxygen, what is produced? Ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. Okay, the three things, that is ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy is produced. Now if you are given the question, the end product of anaerobic respiration is dash, then you will be telling ethanol, CO2 and energy. Okay, ethanol is a 2-carbon compound, or it is basically an alcohol. You can also get the MCQ saying the end product of anaerobic respiration is alcohol plus carbon dioxide plus energy. And is this statement correct or wrong? Yes, this is correct. Okay. And next is the unique form of respiration that happens in our muscle cells. It does not happen at all period of time. It happens only in the certain period of time when our muscle cells are very tired because of excessive physical activity. What happens when you are doing the excess of physical activity or you are running a marathon race? Your leg will start paining, isn't it? There will be cramps on your legs. Why is that so? Because when we are running or we are doing excessive of physical work, then the oxygen present in our muscle would be less as compared to the work we are doing. Okay, we are doing more work but we are taking less oxygen. While running, what happens to our breathing? We start breathing so fast because our body require much more oxygen, because the energy is constantly being produced for us to help keep on running. In order to produce continuous energy, what happens is our body require continuous supply of oxygen, isn't it? But in the muscles, the supply of oxygen become less. In that case, what happens? The muscle cell, they start respiring in the absence of oxygen itself. And what it produces when our muscle cell start breaking down the glucose in the absence of oxygen, it will produce lactic acid and energy. In the normal cell of our body, they respire in the presence of oxygen and they will produce CO2, H2O and energy. But when there is lack of oxygen due to excess of physical activity, rate of the taking in of oxygen is less than the rate of respiration. In that case, what happens? There will be the shortage of oxygen in the muscle cell and our muscle cell start respiring anaerobically. Okay, and if it starts respiring anaerobically, then it produces lactic acid and energy. Because of the production of lactic acid, there will be cramps in our leg. We are getting energy and we will be running more faster, isn't it, to win the race? But eventually there is a production of lactic acid, because of which after we win the race, our leg will be paining so severely. Okay, and now next, in the presence of oxygen, this happens in the mitochondria. What are mitochondria? Mitochondria are also known as the powerhouse of the cell. It is because the final breakdown of glucose happens in mitochondria, and thus the production of energy and the storage of energy also happens in mitochondria, because of which the mitochondria is very rich in ATP molecule, so it is known as the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, like we use money to buy anything in a shop, isn't it? In the same way, our body use ATP to do any kind of chemical reaction. Alright, that is the reason why ATP is known as the energy currency of the cell, because like the rupee has value in our day-to-day life, ATP has same value inside our body, and that is stored in mitochondria. That is why the mitochondria are known as the powerhouse of the cell. Alright, Now you see, in the presence of oxygen, what is produced? CO2 plus H2O plus energy. That means the end product of aerobic respiration is carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. Okay, I hope you got all these things. If you have any kind of doubt, then you can please ping me on the comment section below. I'll be clarifying your doubts. Okay, now you see, energy released is used to produce ATP. Now the energy here, this energy, this energy, this energy, what is the use of this energy? Finally we want to produce ATP from this energy. We will use these energies to produce ATP molecule. Okay, because I told you ATP has a value of rupee, isn't it? That means our body need ATP. And how is it producing ATP? You see, ADP, adenosine diphosphate, plus 1-phosphate molecule in the presence of energy will be combining and producing ATP molecule. Okay, you see the full form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Triphosphate means it has 3 phosphate molecule. Okay, and diphosphate means it has 2 phosphate molecule. You see the name here, it is tri and it is di. When we add 1 phosphate molecule in ADP, in that means diphosphate, then we will get triphosphate. Okay, 2 phosphate plus 1 phosphate will give us 3 phosphate. And this is the main energy reservoir in the body. Alright, here the breakdown of 1 ATP molecule will produce 30.5 kilojoule energy per now you see, breakdown of 1 ATP molecule releases 30.5 kilojoule per molecule of energy. You note it down. Okay, you have to remember this. The release of energy is 30.5 kilojoule per molecule of energy when 1 ATP molecule is broken down. Alright, now you people might have a question, ma'am, what is the use of that oxygen, or what is the use of breaking down the glucose in the presence of oxygen if without oxygen also same amount of energy is released? Bacteria or the yeast, they are not using oxygen, but then they are also producing the same type of energy, that is ATP molecule, and we are also producing the same energy currency, that is ATP molecule. Then what is the use of oxygen? We would also have used the anaerobic respiration itself. Why are we going for aerobic respiration? Why are we breathing and releasing carbon dioxide? Isn't it? Why are we breathing in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide? You people might have a question, but the simple answer here is aerobic respiration. After breaking down of 1 glucose molecule, it produces 36 ATP molecule, and the anaerobic respiration, after breaking down of 1 glucose molecule, it produces only 2 ATP molecule. Okay, eventually now I think you can conclude the production of energy in case of aerobic respiration is much higher as compared to that of anaerobic respiration, because of which we higher living organism, we have moved on to the aerobic form of respiration, because we need much more energy as compared to anaerobic organism, which are smaller in size and they need less amount of energy for their life processes. Hope this part is clear to you, and if you have any kind of confusion in this part, then you can please comment me on the comment section below. And for today only this much. In the next video we'll be studying about the breathing and the mechanism. Okay, that is mainly we'll be studying about the respiratory system. Thank you, keep learning, and please do not forget to subscribe and like my channel. Thank you so much.